Imagine swallowing a poison so potent that just a single concentrated dose could kill 2,000 men.
Oh, wow.
Right. And now imagine taking that exact same lethal dose, hiding it inside this big carrot, and then feeding it to an elephant. And then you just watch as the elephant chews it up, swallows, and, well, simply wanders off completely unharmed.
I mean, it sounds like a total myth, right? But
Yeah.
it's actually a documented historical experiment from the 19th century by the physician Test.
Yeah, the sources mention that. It's wild.
It really is. Like 3 hours after the elephant ate that massive lethal dose of Aconitum, they gave it a different poison, prussic acid, and the animal died almost instantly.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but that first poison, the Aconitum, it did absolutely nothing to this massive herbivore.
Which, sets up one of the most bizarre and fascinating paradoxes in all of botanical medicine. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today in this deep
That's
dive.
exactly. We are looking at Aconitum napellus.
Commonly known as monkhood or wolfsbane. We are digging into this botanical assassin that historically just, ignored herbivores, violently attacked carnivores, and somehow holds the key to curing the most terrifying human emotion, which is just pure, unadulterated panic.
Right. And the reason we're doing this, the mission today, is because you, the listener, reached out to us. You're putting together a presentation for your classical homeopathy students.
Yeah, and you don't want to just hand them some dry table of contents or, a boring list of symptoms. That's a surefire way to put them to sleep.
Exactly. You want to build this really striking, vivid, imaginative mental model of the remedy for them. You want it to be fun, but deeply informative.
Right, bridging those classical foundational texts
Uh-huh.
from pioneers like Samuel Hahnemann, all the way to the groundbreaking modern vision of George Vithoulkas.
So to do that, you have to start with a thesis, which is that Aconitum isn't just a plant. It represents the absolute extreme of human experience.
Right.
It's the sudden, violent storm of panic, shock, and intense physical reaction.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you are standing in front of your students, the absolute best place to anchor them is with Dr. Carol Dunham's historical analogies.
The great storm analogy, it's so good.
It really is. He described an Aconitum illness as a great storm. Like, it is not a lingering, dreary drizzle that ruins your weekend.
Right. No, it's a tornado.
Exactly. It comes on with terrifying suddenness, just wreaks absolute havoc on the landscape, and then it passes quickly.
But we have to look at the mechanism of that storm for your students, specifically how it's triggered in the physical environment.
Right, the classical triggers.
Yeah, Hahnemann and the early pioneers noted that this internal violent storm is typically triggered by a very specific external one. It's exposure to dry, cold winds.
And usually winds coming from the north or the west, according to the texts.
Right, or a sudden suppression of sweat. Like you're chopping wood, you're sweating profusely, and then boom, a freezing dry gale hits you.
Wait, let me stop you there, though. Why does it have to be a dry, cold wind? I mean, a cold, damp fog makes you sick, too, right?
It does, but a damp cold acts much more insidiously. It kind of seeps into the joints over time.
Oh, like Ristox or Dulcamara type stuff.
Exactly. But a dry, freezing wind, that strips heat from the body instantaneously. It shocks the peripheral nervous system.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, the superficial blood vessels rapidly constrict to save core heat, right? So the body registers this sudden, massive heat loss as a mortal threat.
So the vital force just completely overcompensates.
Precisely. It shunts all the blood to the core, the internal engine revs into total overdrive, and then it rebounds outward in this massive systemic inflammatory explosion.
Wow.
That immediate, violently active congestion, that is the storm.
Okay, that is such a great visual for the presentation because Hahnemann was writing in the early 1800s, right? He's looking at people chopping wood, blacksmiths, farmers.
Yeah, very physical laborers.
Right, and he describes the classic Aconitum patient as robust, plethoric, full-blooded, vigorous, people with rigid muscular fibers and a bounding pulse.
Which makes sense. It takes a massive amount of baseline vital energy to produce a crash that violent.
Exactly. It's tell your students this. A frail person getting sick is like a bicycle slowly tipping over at a stop sign.
Right.
But Aconitum is a sports car hitting a brick wall at 120 miles an hour. The impact is catastrophic purely because of the immense power and speed behind it.
The physical robustness actually provides the fuel for the fever.
But hold on, let me push back a bit here. Because you are preparing a presentation for modern students who are treating modern patients.
Right.
And, well, we are chronically stressed, we're sleep deprived, sitting at desks all day, living on caffeine and cortisol. I mean, we don't really have that 19th century lumberjack vitality anymore.
Sad but true.
So, are we even capable of mounting an Aconitum response today? The sources actually say modern civilization has eroded that plethoric profile.
This is a really vital distinction to make for your class.
Hmm.
And the sources point out that George Vithoulkas dissects this perfectly.
Oh, right. Let's get into Vithoulkas.
Yeah, so modern life has indeed diminished that purely physical muscular robustness. We see the classic fever from a cold wind a lot less frequently today than Hahnemann did.
Okay.
However, the tension remains. The intense, high-strung reactivity of the nervous and vascular systems is perfectly preserved.
Or even amplified, honestly, in the modern patient.
Exactly. The violin string is still wound up to the absolute maximum. It's just, a thinner string now.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, so the physical vigor might be lower, but the nervous system is perpetually hovering right on the edge of the red line. It takes almost nothing to push that highly sensitized nervous system into a violent, explosive state.
Which actually brings us right back to the elephant.
Oh, right, the carnivore versus herbivore thing.
Yeah. If we look at the historical anecdote from Teste, Aconitum targets carnivores but completely leaves herbivores alone.
Because carnivores have highly developed, intensely reactive nervous systems. They're geared for hunting, fast reflexes, sudden bursts of lethal energy.
Right, whereas herbivores are parasympathetically dominant. They graze, they digest, they are placid.
Right, so the poison fundamentally seeks out the tension. It targets a high-tension nervous system.
And understanding that hyperreactivity perfectly bridges the gap between a purely physical chill and a purely psychological shock.
Which is the big paradigm shift.
Exactly. This is where Vithoulkas completely changed how we understand this remedy. I mean, for over a century, Aconitum was primarily just the acute remedy, right?
Yeah, you get a sudden cold, a running nose, a high fever, a flushed red face after being out in a winter gale, and you take Aconitum right at the onset.
Hahnemann actually used it to dismantle the barbaric medical practice of bloodletting.
Oh, that's right, because doctors were literally bleeding patients to death to relieve the pressure of those sudden fevers.
Yeah, and Hahnemann proved that just a microdose of Aconitum could bring down those violent active congestions almost instantly without spilling a single drop of blood.
But then Vithoulkas took that understanding of acute physical shock and mapped it onto chronic psychological trauma.
This is the part your students really need to hear.
Definitely. He realized Aconitum isn't just for the immediate aftermath of a cold wind. It is a profound, deep-acting remedy for the lifelong, vibrating echo of terror.
The echo of terror. Wow.
Yeah, the central theme is a nervous system that is excessively excitable, and the trigger isn't always the weather. Often it's a sudden fright that traps the fight-or-flight response in the physical tissues for years.
And the sources give some really harrowing modern examples of this.
Yeah, I do.
Like surviving the massive 1982 earthquake in Athens that left thousands of people in a chronic Aconitum state.
Right, they were physically unharmed, but their nervous systems never left that moment when the ground shook.
They lived in constant anticipation, trembling, just exhausted from the subconscious belief that the floor could open up again at any second.
Other scenarios in the literature are just as visceral, like getting trapped in a dark elevator,
Or
or a sudden, unexpected power outage when you're completely alone.
witnessing a horrifying near-fatal accident. I mean, there is that clinical anecdote in the text about the mother whose daughter was accidentally shot right in front of her.
Oh, that one is intense.
Yeah, the mother suffered an immediate mental shock. She turned deadly pale, fainted whenever she tried to sit up, and was utterly consumed by a paralyzing panic that just wouldn't lift.
Let's actually look at the physiology of that fainting, because that is a massive keynote your students really need to understand.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just feeling dizzy.
No, the text emphasizes that the face might be flushed, red, and hot while they're lying down, but the second they try to sit up or rise from the bed, the face suddenly turns deathly pale, and they just collapse in terror.
So what's happening there mechanically?
Well, the vascular system has completely lost its ability to regulate pressure. Normally, when a healthy person sits up, the baroreceptors in the neck immediately signal the blood vessels in the legs to constrict.
Right, to push the blood up to the brain against gravity.
Exactly. But in the aconitum state, the nervous system is so overwhelmed by the shock that this basic reflex just fails.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they sit up, gravity takes over, the blood instantly drains from the head, the red face turns white, the brain is deprived of oxygen, and they faint.
And on top of that, they're experiencing these sudden, explosive, episodic physical crises.
Mm.
Violent palpitations, arrhythmias, tingling in the extremities.
Right, a very specific, severe numbness too, often just on one side of the face or body.
The physical machinery of their body feels like it is catastrophically failing.
And because these physical symptoms are so sudden, so violent, and feel so utterly unmanageable, they trigger the most famous extreme mental symptom of the remedy.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for the presentation.
Yeah, the patient logically deduces, based on the sheer chaos in their vascular system, that they are about to die.
This is the ultimate aconitum keynote, the absolute agonizing fear of death.
And it isn't just a vague, generalized anxiety about mortality.
No, they are convinced that death is an imminent physical presence in the room with them.
It dominates both the acute fevers and the chronic panic states. The fear is just inescapable.
The classical texts actually call it a kind of clairvoyance.
Yeah, because they don't just fear dying, they will literally predict the exact day and hour of their demise.
Right. If there is a clock on the wall, they will point to it and tell the doctor, I'm going to die at exactly 3 p.m., put your instruments away, it is useless.
The certainty is overwhelming. And this absolute conviction creates a psychological paradox that you really must clarify for your students.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that, because if someone is utterly convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt that they are going to expire at 3 p.m., human psychology suggests they would just fall into a quiet, resigned depression, right?
You think so, yeah.
Like they would make their peace, lie still, and just wait for the end. But the sources explicitly say that a aconitum patient is wildly, constantly, frantically restless. Why the frenzy if the outcome is supposedly certain?
Because the aconitum state is not a state of quiet resignation. It is a sympathetic nervous system storm.
Ah, okay.
The body is just flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. The nervous system is firing pure agony signals on all cylinders.
So they demand urgent, immediate relief.
Exactly. Because the internal physical and mental pressure is intolerable. They're tossing and turning, driven crazy by pains they describe as stabbing, tearing, or like a sharp knife.
They are essentially trying to physically escape their own body.
Yeah.
The internal noise is just deafening. Because their nervous system is already firing at maximum capacity, there is absolutely zero bandwidth left for external stimuli.
Which perfectly explains one of those bizarre and specific notes in the classical texts.
Oh, this is a great quirk to throw into the presentation.
Yes. These patients are pushed into agonizing despair by music.
Wait, really? Music?
Yeah. A beautiful melody isn't soothing to them at all. It's an auditory assault.
The text actually says even cheerful music makes them overwhelmingly sad and frantic.
Think about it. We process music in the brain using complex pathways, right?
Yeah.
Pitch, rhythm, emotional resonance.
Yeah.
When your entire neurological architecture is redlining in a state of mortal terror, forcing it to process a complex auditory waveform is like turning the volume up to 11 on a speaker that is already blown out.
Oh, I love that analogy. It physically hurts their nerves.
Right. They are hypersensitized to light, to touch, and to noise. The sensory gates are blown wide open.
And this vascular and nervous chaos translates into some incredibly specific physical quirks that Hahnemann meticulously cataloged.
Yeah, and when you present this, you don't just want to list these physical symptoms for your class. You want to show your students how they all stem from the same boiling vascular state.
Let's look at the chest. The sources describe a sensation of boiling water inside the chest.
Right.
It's not just acid reflux or heartburn. They literally feel like the blood inside their pulmonary vessels is boiling.
Which perfectly explains their intense, unquenchable thirst.
Ah, right.
When you realize the patient feels like they have an internal fire raging in their chest, craving massive quantities of freezing cold water, makes perfect physiological sense.
They are desperately trying to extinguish the flame.
Exactly.
But here is where the neurology gets fascinating. While they are downing pitchers of ice water, absolutely everything else they try to eat or drink tastes bitterly awful.
Yeah, the sensory papillae on the tongue are completely distorted by that neurological storm.
Normal flavors register as bitter and foul. Only the extreme thermal shock of freezing water registers cleanly through all that noise.
And this internal vascular pressure doesn't just stay in the chest. It moves up into larynx, too.
Causing the classic aconitum croupy cough.
Right. and the sound of the cough is harsh. But what you really need to tell your students to watch for is the reaction to it.
What do you mean?
With every single coughing fit, the child will grab their throat in absolute wide-eyed terror.
Oh, wow.
The sudden spasm of the larynx makes them feel like they're being strangled. The suffocation triggers that latent panic instantly.
That is terrifying. But you also see this chaotic vascular state in their temperature regulation, right?
Yes, they have an extreme aversion to being touched or covered.
The internal heat is so oppressive, they will just aggressively throw all the blankets off the bed.
Yet, while they are burning up and throwing off the covers, they will sweat profusely, but strictly on the side of the body they're lying on.
Wait, only on one side?
Yeah, it's wild. Think of the vascular system in this state as an immensely overpressurized water balloon.
Okay.
The tension is so extreme that just the sheer physical weight of resting the balloon on a table causes it to leak out the bottom.
Ah, so gravity and the slight pressure of the mattress against the skin is enough to force the sweat out of the pores on that specific side.
Exactly, while the rest of the body remains completely dry and burning hot.
That is such a vivid picture. Every single symptom, the fear of death, the fainting upon sitting up, the hatred of music, the one-sided sweat, all of it points back to a system that has been violently hijacked.
Yes. Hahnemann saw the acute physical hijacking by the freezing wind, and Vitholkas saw the chronic psychological hijacking by sudden trauma.
So, bringing this all together for your students, what's the ultimate takeaway?
When your students walk out of your presentation, the core concept they must carry into their clinical practice is that Aconitum is the ultimate remedy for the explosive present moment.
Right?
It is the remedy for a vital force that has been pushed past its absolute limit, resulting in a sudden, violent, high-tension storm.
It's the sports car hitting the wall.
Exactly. And the real beauty of this remedy lies in its history. I mean, it is the remedy that proved to the medical establishment that you didn't need to drain a patient's blood to save their life from a sudden raging fever.
A microdose could calm a macrostorm.
Well said. And I want to leave you and your students with one final thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
We started by talking about monkshood as one of the most deadly, rapidly acting botanical poisons on Earth.
A poison that kills through sheer, rapid terror to the nervous system.
Right. So isn't it just a breathtaking paradox of nature that this exact same killer became, through the principles of homeopathy, the precise tool used to calm the most violent, terrifying, and rapidly acting human emotion? The ultimate poison of panic becomes the exact cure for panic.
The storm that brings its own calm. I love that. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Aconitum napellus.
It's been great.
You now have the classical foundations, the modern psychological insights, the physiological mechanisms, and yeah, an immortal elephant.
Have fun with it.
Go build a striking, imaginative, and unforgettable presentation for your students. And watch out for those dry, cold winds.